I thought saying no was the end of it. I refused to co-sign the $55,000 loan for my brother's truck and walked away, proud of my boundaries. Then a notification lit up my phone in the dark. A hard credit inquiry from a bank I did not use. The silence from my family had not been peace. It was the quiet concentration of people committing fraud. There is a specific kind of silence that lives in a spreadsheet. It is not empty. It is orderly. It is the sound of a chaotic life finally wrestled into a grid, where every dollar has a name and a destination, and nothing is allowed to surprise you. I sat at my kitchen island in Briar Glen on a Tuesday evening, watching the cursor blink in cell E14. The cell contained the number 0. It was the most beautiful thing I owned, 3 years ago. That cell had held a negative number that kept me awake until 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I could sell my car to pay rent. Now, at 33 years old, I had an emergency fund. I had a credit score that started with the number 7. I had a pulse that didn't spike when I opened the mailbox. I saved the file, closed my laptop, and took a sip of lukewarm tea. My apartment was quiet. It was a second-floor unit with beige carpet and a view of the parking lot. But it was mine. I paid the rent on the first of the month, every month. I did not have debt collectors calling my work line. I did not have to borrow $20 from friends for gas. I had built a fortress of boredom around my life, and I defended it with the ferocity of a soldier. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. It was my mother. Diane, dinner on Sunday. The text read, "Logan has big news. Be there at 5. I felt a small, familiar tighten in my stomach. Big news in the Stewart family rarely meant someone had won the lottery or cured a disease. Usually, it meant someone had an idea, and that idea required an audience, and eventually, that idea would require a wallet. I typed back, "I will be there." I should have asked what the news was. I should have asked who else was coming. But in my family, asking questions was often interpreted as an act of aggression. So I simply put the phone down, washed my tea mug, and prepared myself to be the supportive sister. I told myself I was being cynical. Logan was my younger brother. He was 29. Maybe he had finally landed a steady contract. Maybe he was getting engaged. Maybe he was finally going to stand on his own 2 feet. I held on to that hope for 5 days, right up until I pulled into my parents' driveway on Sunday evening. The house looked the same as it always did. A little tired. The siding needing a power wash. The lawn slightly overgrown. My father's old sedan was in the driveway, parked next to a brand new, gleaming white pickup truck that looked large enough to crush a small village. I parked my sensible 4-door sedan on the street and walked up the drive. The truck was a beast. It had chrome accents that caught the late afternoon sun and tires that came up to my hip. It still had the dealer sticker in the window. I walked inside, and the energy in the kitchen was manic. My mother was stirring a pot of chili on the stove, her movements quick and jerky. My father, Mark, was sitting at the table with a beer, looking flushed and loud. And Logan was standing in the center of the room, vibrating with adrenaline. "Piper is here," Logan shouted. He looked good. I had to admit. He had cleaned up, trimmed his beard, and was wearing a collared shirt. "Did you see it? Did you see the beast out front?" "I saw it," I said, hanging my purse on the back of a chair. "It is huge, Logan." "Whose is it?" Logan laughed, a sound that was half nerves and half bravado. "It is going to be mine. Pip, it is the key. It is the launch pad." My father slammed his hand on the table, beaming. "The Stewart legacy. That is what it is." I sat down slowly. The air in the room felt thick, like the moments before a thunderstorm breaks. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice level. "Tell me about the plan." Logan pulled out a chair and spun it around to straddle it, leaning toward me. "Okay, so you know I have been picking up those contracting gigs, drywall, some framing, landscaping, but I am limited. Piper, I am losing jobs because I cannot haul the heavy equipment. I am renting trailers, and it is eating my profits." I nodded. That made sense. "So," Logan continued, his eyes wide, "I need my own rig. I need a truck that says I am a professional. Sunridge Motors has this beauty. It is a heavy-duty diesel, towing package, luxury interior so I can take clients to lunch. It is perfect. It sounds nice. I said, "How much is it?" The room went quiet for a fraction of a second. My mother stopped stirring the chili. Logan cleared his throat. "The sticker is 62, but they are giving me a deal. $55,000. I blinked. $55,000. Logan? I said, keeping my tone mild. That is a lot of money. Do you have the business revenue to support that? It is an investment, my father interjected, pointing his beer bottle at me. You have to spend money to make money. Piper, you know that. You are the corporate one. I turned to my brother. Do you have a business plan? Do you have contracts signed that will cover the payments? Logan waved his hand dismissively. I have verbal agreements. I have guys promising me work as soon as I show up with the right equipment. This truck pays for itself in 6 months. I did the math. Show me the math. I said. Logan hesitated. He looked at our mother, then back at me. I do not have it written down on a spreadsheet like you would do. Piper. But I know the industry. I took a breath. I had worked too hard for my piece to let chaos walk in through the front door without checking its ID. What is the monthly payment? I asked. Logan shifted in his seat. Well, with the interest rates right now, and because my credit is recovering, it is around $900 a month. $900 a month, I repeated, plus insurance, plus diesel, which is more expensive than gas. You are looking at $1,200 a month just to keep the vehicle on the road. We did not ask for a lecture, my mother said sharply from the stove. She turned around, wiping her hands on a dish towel. We asked for family support. Logan is trying to build something. I am supporting him. I said, I am asking the questions that the bank will ask. Well, that is the thing, Logan said, his voice dropping an octave. The bank, they are being difficult. Because of that medical bill from last year, and the time I missed a few payments on the old car, they say I need a cosigner, just to get the approval. The word hung in the air. Cosigner. I felt the blood drain from my face. I knew this script. I had performed in this play before. 10 years ago, I co-signed a cell phone plan for a cousin. I ended up paying $600 to a collection agency to keep it off my record. 5 years ago, I lent my parents $2,000 for a roof repair that they promised to pay back in a month. I never saw a dime. And when I asked about it, I was told I was being petty. I looked at Logan. You want me to co-sign? Just for a year, Logan said quickly. Just until I refinance. Once the business is rolling, I take it over completely. You will never even have to make a payment. I looked at my father. He was watching me with a heavy, expectant look. I looked at my mother. She had crossed her arms, her face set in a look of defensive anticipation. I cannot do that. Logan, I said. I did not shout. I did not sound angry. I just said the words. Logan recoiled like I had slapped him. Why not? Because $55,000 is more than I make in a year. I said, because a co-signed loan appears on my credit report as my debt. If you miss a payment, my score drops. If you default, the bank sues me. I am finally in a stable place. I cannot risk my housing or my credit. My father let out a groan of disgust. Housing. You rent an apartment. Piper, it is not like you have a mortgage. I want to buy a house someday. Dad, I said, and I cannot do that if I have a $55,000 truck loan anchored to my name. My mother stepped forward. Piper, listen to yourself. Your brother is asking for a hand up. Not a handout, a hand up. After everything we did for you? Who paid for your car insurance when you were 22? Who let you live here rent-free after college? I paid you rent. I said quietly. I paid you $400 a month. That barely covered the food you ate, she snapped. We are a family. We carry each other. Logan needs this. This is his chance to be someone. Then let him buy a used truck, I said. Logan, you can get a solid work truck for $15,000. Why do you need the brand new one with the leather seats? Start small, build the business, then buy the dream truck. Logan stood up. his face flushing red. You think I am a loser? That is what this is. You think I cannot make the payments. I think the economy is unstable and $55,000 is a massive liability. I said, I am happy to help you with your resume. I will help you look at your budget. I will help you research used trucks. But I will not sign my name on a loan for a luxury vehicle. It is not a luxury vehicle, Logan shouted. It is a tool. It is a $55,000 tool, I said. My father stood up too. Enough, if you are going to be selfish. Piper, just say it. Do not hide behind credit scores and budgets. You think because you got your little promotion and moved to the nice side of town that you do not owe us anything. I stood my ground. I owe you respect. I owe you love. I do not owe you my financial security. My mother turned back to the stove. Just sit down and eat, she said, her voice icy. We will figure it out without her. We always do. I looked at the table. The chili smelled like cumin and tension. I knew if I sat down, I would be agreeing to a dynamic I had spent 3 years escaping. I'm not staying for dinner. I said. No one looked at me. Logan was staring at the floor. My father was chugging his beer. My mother was stirring the pot so hard I thought the spoon would snap. I walked out. I walked past the $55,000 truck. I got into my paid-off sedan, and I drove home in silence. The silence did not end when I got home. Usually, my mother would call me the next day to guilt-trip me, or my father would send a text making a joke to smooth things over. This time, there was nothing. Monday passed. Tuesday passed. On Wednesday, I saw the photo. It popped up on my Facebook feed. It was a picture of a dinner table, my parents' table. There was a steak dinner spread out. Logan was there, smiling, holding a beer. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Jerry were there. My cousin Mike was there, and the caption, written by my mother, read, "So grateful for family who shows up. Real family supports dreams." Stuart, strong new chapter. I stared at the screen. The empty chair where I usually sat was not even in the frame. They had angled the camera to cut me out of the narrative entirely. I felt a sting of tears, hot and sudden. It was childish to be hurt by a Facebook post, but the message was surgical. Real family supports dreams. The implication was clear. I was fake family. I was the defector. I put my phone down and tried to focus on work. I was an accounts manager for a logistics firm. My job was literal logistics, moving things from point A to point B efficiently. I dealt with reality. If a truck broke down, we did not pray about it. We sent a mechanic. If a driver was late, we adjusted the schedule. My family operated on a different frequency, one where wishful thinking was a currency and reality was an insult. On Thursday, the silence broke, but not in the way I hoped. I received a text from Aunt Linda, "Piper, honey, come over for coffee tonight around 6. I made that lemon cake you like. We haven't seen you in ages." I hesitated. Aunt Linda was usually the Switzerland of the family. She stayed out of the fights. I thought maybe she wanted to bridge the gap. I thought maybe she saw the craziness of the truck loan and wanted to tell me I was right. I drove to her house in the older part of Briar Glen. It was a small bungalow with flower boxes. When I walked in, I realized immediately that I had walked into a trap. It was not just Aunt Linda. My mother was there, sitting on the floral sofa with a cup of coffee. My cousin Mike was leaning against the door frame. Aunt Linda was in the kitchen, cutting the cake, but her back was stiff. "Hi," I said, freezing in the entryway. "I didn't know it was a party." "It is not a party," my mother said. She didn't look at me. She looked at the steam rising from her cup. "It is a check-in. Since you are clearly struggling." I blinked. "I am struggling?" Linda came in with the cake, avoiding my eyes. "Here you go. Sweetie, sit down." I sat on the edge of the armchair. The room felt suffocatingly small. "Piper," Aunt Linda started, her voice overly sweet. "Your mom tells us you are feeling a lot of anxiety." "About Logan's new business. I am not anxious." I said, "I am realistic. He wants to buy a truck that costs more than he makes." Mike, my cousin, laughed. He was wearing a baseball cap and chewing gum. Come on, Pip, it is just a signature. You act like he is asking for a kidney. It is a legal liability. Mike, I said, you have changed, my mother said. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were hard. You have become so cold, so corporate. You think because you wear a blazer to work you are better than everyone? You forgot where you came from. I did not forget. I said, my voice shaking slightly. I remember exactly where I came from. I remember the electricity getting shut off when I was 12 because Dad spent the bill money on a sure thing investment. I remember you crying at the kitchen table because of credit card debt. I am trying to stop Logan from making the same mistakes. Do not talk about your father like that. My mother snapped. He provided for you. He did the best he could. I said, but I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep Logan warm. Linda placed a hand on my knee. Piper, honey, nobody is asking you to burn. They just need a name. Logan has the income. Mom said he has got the contracts lined up. He has verbal promises. I said, that is not a contract. My mother set her cup down with a clatter. You know, for someone who claims to be so smart, you are remarkably stupid about family. We survive because we link arms. If one falls, we all hold them up. You are letting go of the chain. I am not letting go. I said, I am standing on solid ground so I can pull you up if you fall. If I jump into the hole with you, we are all stuck. My mother narrowed her eyes. It is $912. Piper, that is all. I froze. What? I asked. The monthly payment. She said, it is $912. You can afford that. We know what you make. We know your rent is only $1,400. You have the room. I felt a cold shiver go down my spine. I had never told them my rent. I had never told them my salary. And I certainly had never calculated the payment to be exactly $912. How do you know that number? I asked. The 912. Logan told me it was around 900. How do you know the exact dollar amount? My mother waved her hand. Logan ran the numbers. With whose credit score? I asked. Because with his credit, the interest rate would make it $1,200. To get it to 912, you would need a Tier 1 credit score. My mother looked away. She picked up her coffee cup again. You are being paranoid. Mike shifted in the doorway. Jesus. Piper, just say you hate your brother and leave. I looked around the room. They were all looking at me with the same expression, a mix of pity and disdain. To them, I was the miser. I was the one hoarding my good fortune, refusing to share my bread. They didn't see the years of discipline. They didn't see the nights I stayed in, the clothes I didn't buy, the vacations I didn't take. They just saw a resource they couldn't access. I stood up. I am leaving. Run away. My mother said to the air, that is what you are good at. I drove home with tears blurring my vision. It was a specific kind of pain, the pain of being punished for doing the right thing. I felt shame, which was ridiculous, because I hadn't done anything wrong. But that is the power of a dysfunctional family system. They can make sanity look like cruelty. I questioned myself. Was I being too rigid? Was $55,000 really that much? Maybe Logan would pay it. Maybe I was being a coward. I got home and paced my apartment. I felt like a stranger in my own life, the silence of the apartment. Usually my sanctuary, now felt like isolation. I washed my face. I put on my pajamas. I tried to read a book, but the words swam on the page. $912. The number stuck in my head. It was so specific. I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I looked at the clock. It was 11:30 at night. The world was asleep. I picked up my phone to set my alarm for the morning. There was a notification on the lock screen. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a Facebook tag. It was from my banking app, which was linked to my credit monitoring service. New alert. Hard inquiry detected. I frowned. A hard inquiry happened when you applied for credit. I hadn't applied for anything. I hadn't even bought a toaster in 6 months. I unlocked the phone and tapped the notification. The app opened. Scanning my Face ID, the little wheel spun for a second, and then the details loaded. Equifax report. Date: today. Inquiry: by Redwood Community Bank. Type: auto loan. My breath stopped in my throat. Redwood Community Bank. I didn't bank with Redwood. I banked with Chase. But I knew the name. Sunridge Motors, the dealership Logan had gone to. They used Redwood Community Bank. I remembered seeing the logo on the brochure Logan had left on the table that first night. I stared at the screen, the white light illuminating my dark kitchen. Hard inquiry. That meant someone had submitted an application. An application required a name, a social security number, a date of birth, an address. It required a signature. My mother's voice echoed in my head. It is $912. She hadn't just been guessing. She hadn't just been estimating. She had seen the paperwork. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me, distinct and violent. I gripped the edge of the granite countertop. They wouldn't. They couldn't. It was illegal. It was a felony. My parents could be manipulative. They could be guilt trippers. They could be bad with money. But they wouldn't commit a crime against me. They wouldn't steal my identity. But the notification was there, staring back at me in calm, blue pixels. Redwood Community Bank. I tapped into the details. The inquiry time was 4:15 p.m., 2 hours before I went to Aunt Linda's house, 2 hours before my mother sat on that floral sofa and told me I was selfish. She had sat there, drinking coffee, eating lemon cake, scolding me for not helping, all while knowing that an application with my name on it was already sitting on a desk somewhere. The silence in my apartment changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was the silence of a crime scene. I dialed the number for the bank's fraud line, but it was after hours. The automated voice told me to call back between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. I hung up. I stood in the dark, clutching the phone. I had spent 3 years building a wall to keep the chaos out. I thought I was safe because I said no. I thought my boundary was a shield. But I was wrong. To my family. No wasn't a wall. It was just a hurdle they had decided to jump over when I wasn't looking. I sank down onto the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets, and stared at the blinking light on the dishwasher. $912. The war hadn't ended. It had just begun. I did not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through a catalog of every piece of mail I had ever left at my parents' house, every tax document, every old pay stub. My social security card? No, I had that in my fireproof box, but I had lived there for 6 months after college. Did they have a copy? Did they have my old tax returns stored on the family computer? Of course they did. My mother kept everything. For safekeeping, she always said. I got up at 6 a.m., I showered, but I didn't feel clean. I put on my work clothes. The blazer my mother had mocked. Too corporate. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. The circles under my eyes were dark purple. I needed to go to work. I needed to act normal. But how could I go manage logistics for a trucking fleet when my own brother had just potentially bought a truck with my life as collateral? I sat down at my computer and logged into the Full Credit Bureau site. I needed to see more than just the notification. I needed to see the full report. I paid the $20 fee for the instant report. It downloaded as a PDF. I scrolled down. Inquiries. Redwood Community Bank. Auto lender. Date. October 14th. And there, right below it, was another one. Sunridge Motors. Auto dealer. Date. October 14th. And a third one. Credit check systems. Date. October 14th. They had shotgunned my credit. They had applied multiple times to get the deal bought. I looked at the header of the report. Current address. 1402 Oak Street. Briar Glen. My parents' address. My stomach dropped. They had used their address. That meant any correspondence, any rejection letters, any acceptance letters, any welcome packets, they would all go to 1402 Oak Street. I would never see them. I would never know until the first bill was missed and my phone started ringing. I reached for my phone to call my mother. My thumb hovered over her name, Mom. If I called her, she would deny it. She would say it was a mistake. She would say the dealership must have accidentally run my name because it was in the system from years ago. She would gaslight me. She was an artist at it. You are imagining things. Piper, you are so dramatic. I couldn't call her. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed to see the signature. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. I wasn't going to work. I was going to Sunridge Motors. The drive was 20 minutes. It was a gray, overcast morning. The sky looked like a bruise. I drove past the high school I had attended, past the park where Logan and I used to play t-ball. The nostalgia hit me like a physical blow. We used to be a team, me and Logan against the world. When did we become enemies? When did my financial survival become a threat to his ego? I pulled into the dealership lot at 8:30. They were just opening. The guys were out on the lot, moving cars around, wiping down windshields with dew on them. And there it was, right in the front row, the white beast, the $55,000 truck. It had a yellow tag hanging from the rearview mirror. Sold. I stared at it through my windshield. Sold. The word felt like a judgment. I parked my car and turned off the engine. My hands were shaking. I put them on the steering wheel and squeezed until my knuckles turned white. $912. I took a deep breath. I was Piper Stewart. I had a credit score of 740. I had an emergency fund. I was not a victim. I opened the car door and stepped out onto the asphalt. The air smelled of gasoline and new rubber. I smoothed down my blazer, locked my car, and walked toward the glass doors of the showroom. I wasn't going in there as a sister. I was going in there as a creditor, and I was going to get the truth, even if I had to burn the family legacy to the ground to find it. The engine of my sedan was off, but I could still feel the vibration of the road in my hands. I sat in the parking lot of Sunridge Motors, the gray morning light pressing against the windshield. 50 feet away, the white truck sat like a monument to entitlement. That yellow sold tag mocking me. I needed to be sure. I needed to be absolutely, legally certain before I walked through those glass doors and detonated my life. I pulled out my phone. My hands were cold. The kind of cold that comes from shock, not weather. I opened the credit monitoring app again. The notification from the night before was still there. A red flag planted in the soil of my financial history. Redwood Community Bank. Inquiry date, October 14th. I tapped the phone icon on the screen to call the bank directly. It was 8:31 in the morning. They had just opened. A recorded voice asked me for my account number. I did not have one. I pressed 0. I pressed 0 again. Finally, a human voice answered. Redwood Community Bank. This is Jennifer. How can I help you? My voice sounded thin in the quiet car. Hi, I am calling because I received an alert about a hard inquiry on my credit report from your bank. I did not apply for a loan. I need to know if an application was submitted in my name. One moment. Jennifer said, "Can I have your social security number?" I gave it to her. I gave her my date of birth. I gave her my full legal name. There was a long pause, filled with the sound of typing. Ms. Stewart, Jennifer said, her tone shifting from polite to procedural. I do see an application here submitted yesterday afternoon. It is for an auto loan, a joint application with a Mr. Logan Stewart. The air left the car. Hearing it out loud was different than suspecting it. It was the difference between fearing a car crash and actually feeling the metal crumple. I did not authorize that. I said, I did not sign anything. I was not there. Jennifer hesitated. The application was submitted through a dealership. Sunridge Motors. It has all your information. Ms. Stewart, your social, your current employer, your income range. My income range. What income did they list? I asked. I cannot disclose all the details if you are saying this is fraud, Jennifer said. But they listed your employer as Apex Logistics. Is that correct? Yes, I whispered. And they have your address listed as 1402 Oak Street. No, I said. That is my parents' house. I have not lived there in 10 years. Jennifer went quiet again. Okay, Ms. Stewart, if you are stating you did not apply for this, I can transfer you to our fraud department. But because the loan is currently in the underwriting phase, it looks like it was conditionally approved this morning, you need to contact the dealership immediately to stop the funding. If the funds are released, it becomes a much more difficult process to reverse. Conditionally approved. Thank you. I said. I hung up. My phone felt like a brick in my hand. I looked at the dashboard clock. 8:35. I had the proof. They had used my name. They had used my social. They had used my job history. And they had used their own address to make sure I wouldn't see the paperwork. I needed to call my mother. I needed to give her one chance. Just one chance to say it was a mistake. One chance to say, "Oh my God. Piper, I don't know how that happened." I dialed Diane's number. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was bright, too bright, brittle with caffeine and nerves. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Mom," I said. Something in my tone must have registered, because her brightness dimmed instantly. "What is it, Piper? You sound intense. I am at Sunridge Motors." I said. Silence. Absolute, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "Why are you there?" she asked finally. Her voice was carefully neutral. "Because I got a fraud alert on my phone. Mom, Redwood Community Bank. Someone applied for a joint loan with Logan using my social security number." There was a pause, and then a sigh. A long, exasperated exhale that sounded like she was dealing with a toddler who had spilled juice. "Oh, Piper, honestly." "Honestly what?" I asked. "You are making this into such a production," she said. "It is just a formality. The finance guy said they just needed to run it to see if it would stick. They were just checking options. They ran a hard inquiry." "Mom," I said, "that is an application. Did you give them my social security number?" I heard her shifting the phone. "Look, we were in a bind. The man said Logan just needed a little boost to get the Tier 1 rate. I knew you would be unreasonable if we asked you again, so we just thought we would see if it was even possible before we had the conversation. We were going to tell you. You were going to tell me after you forged my signature?" I asked. "Nobody forged anything," she snapped. "You are so dramatic. It is electronic. Piper, it is just buttons on a screen. Nobody sat there with a quill pen faking your name. That is still fraud." "Mom!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "You used my identity without my permission to secure a $55,000 debt. Stop using that word," she hissed. "Fraud. You are talking about your family. You are talking about your brother. We are not criminals. We are trying to help him build a life. And you are acting like we stole your kidney. Stop punishing everyone over one little no. One little no. Mom, the bank said the loan is conditionally approved." I said, "Tell me right now. Did you intend to go through with it?" "Piper, you are imagining problems that do not exist yet," she said. "Just come over tonight. We can talk about it. We can work out a payment plan so you feel safe. Logan is good for it." She didn't deny it. She wanted to negotiate the terms of my surrender. "I am not coming over." I said, "I am walking into the dealership. Do not do that," she said, her voice dropping to a warning growl. "Do not go in there and embarrass your brother. Do not make a scene. Piper." I hung up. I stared at the phone. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Embarrass your brother. That was the priority. Not the felony, not the betrayal, the appearance of things. I opened my car door and stepped out. The air was cold. I smoothed my blazer. I grabbed my portfolio, the leather one I used for client meetings. I needed to look like I owned the place. I needed to look like I was not a daughter. But a problem. I walked through the glass doors of Sunridge Motors. The showroom was clean, smelling of floor wax and coffee. A receptionist looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak to the finance manager who is handling the Logan Stewart deal," I said. She blinked. "Oh, that would be Gary. Let me see if he's free." She picked up a phone. "Gary, there is a lady here regarding the Stewart deal." She listened, then nodded. "He says he is just finishing up some paperwork," she said. "You can have a seat." I did not sit. I stood by the desk, my arms crossed. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then a door opened in the back, and a man walked out. He was in his 50s, wearing a polo shirt with the dealership logo and khakis that were slightly too tight. He had the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Stewart? He asked. I am Gary, Logan's sister, right? Great news about the truck. We are just getting the final docs prepped for him to pick up this afternoon. I did not smile back. I need to see the credit application. I said. Gary's smile faltered. Excuse me? The application that was submitted to Redwood Community Bank in my name. I said, I want a copy. He laughed. A short, nervous sound. Well, now, I cannot just hand out paperwork like that. Privacy laws. You know, that is sensitive information. It is my information. Gary, I said, it is my name. It is my social security number. Technically, it is a bank document, he said, leaning back against a desk. And since Logan is the primary applicant, I would need him present to release anything. Or I would need a subpoena. He thought I was a concerned relative. He thought I was just a nosy sister who wanted to see the numbers. I took a step closer. I do not need a subpoena to see a document I supposedly signed. Gary, I am telling you that I did not authorize this application. I was not here yesterday. I did not sign a consent form. If you submitted this application without my physical presence and my wet signature, you have committed identity theft. And if you fund this loan, you are committing bank fraud. The air in the showroom seemed to freeze. The receptionist stopped typing. Gary's face went from condescending to pale in about 3 seconds. Now, hold on, he said, holding up his hands. Let's lower our voices. Your brother and mother were here. They said, I do not care what they said. I cut him off. I am here now, and I'm telling you that I am the person whose credit you are using, and I did not give you permission. I want to see the application, or I can call the police and we can have them request it. And I will also need the name of your compliance officer. Gary wiped his forehead. Look, there is no need for police. It was probably just a misunderstanding. Let me check the file. He turned and walked back into his office. I followed him. He didn't stop me. His office was small and cluttered. There were stacks of manila folders everywhere. He went to his desk and pulled a thick folder from a pile. The tab read, Stewart, L. He opened it. I saw papers. I saw copies of driver's licenses. I reached out and put my hand on the folder before he could close it. I want to see the contact sheet. I said. Gary looked at me, then looked at my hand on the desk. He was calculating. He realized I wasn't going to leave. He flipped the page. There was a printed sheet titled Customer Information Worksheet / Deal Jacket. It listed Logan's name. It listed my parents' address. And then, under co-applicant, it listed my name, Piper Ann Stewart. Cell 555-0199. My mother's cell number. Email, Piper Stewart 2010 yahoo.com. I stared at the email address. It was an email account I had created when I was 17. I hadn't used it since college. I didn't even know the password anymore, but my mother did. It was the address she used to send me e-cards on my birthday years ago. It was the address written in her old physical address book that she kept by the landline in the kitchen. That one detail, that archaic, dusty email address, was the smoking gun. If I had applied, I would have used my professional Gmail. I would have used my work email. The only person who would use Piper, Stewart 2010, was someone who was operating off a memory of who I used to be. This is not my email, I said, pointing at the paper, and that is not my phone number. That is my mother's number. Gary closed the folder. Look, Ms. Stewart, if you are saying you didn't sign, we have a problem, but I have a signature here. He flashed a page. A signature page. I saw it for half a second. It was a scribble. It looked vaguely like my name, but it slanted the wrong way. It looked like someone trying to write my name while looking at a sample of it. I pulled my phone out. I am freezing my credit right now. I said, and I am placing a fraud alert. If you send this deal to the bank for funding, I will name you personally in the police report. Do you understand? Gary swallowed. I will put a hold on the deal. We will reach out to Logan. You do that, I said. I turned and walked out. My legs felt like jelly. I made it to my car before my knees gave out. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. I couldn't breathe. It was real. They had actually done it. They had walked into this office, sat in these chairs, and impersonated me. My mother had probably smiled at Gary while she wrote down that old email address. Logan had probably nodded while Gary ran the numbers. They had bonded over the theft of my financial future. I opened my laptop. I kept it in my bag for work. I tethered it to my phone's hotspot. I had to be fast. I went to Experian first. Freeze credit file. I typed in my information. I created a PIN. Submit. Your credit file is now frozen. I went to TransUnion. Freeze credit file. Submit. I went to Equifax. Freeze credit file. Submit. Then I went to the fraud alert page. I placed an initial 1-year fraud alert. This meant that even if someone unfroze the file, the bank would have to call me at my verified number before opening an account. I opened a Word document. I named it Timeline of Events. October 14th. Inquiry from Redwood Community Bank. October 14th. Inquiry from Sunridge Motors. October 15th. 8:31 a.m. Call to Redwood Bank. Confirmed application. October 15th. 8:38 a.m. Call to Diane Stewart. She admitted they ran it to see options. October 15th. 9 a.m. Meeting with Gary at Sunridge. Saw false email address. Piper, Stewart, 2010. Typing it out made it feel cold and clinical, but my hands were shaking so hard I kept hitting the wrong keys. I felt a sob building in my chest, a hot, jagged thing. I swallowed it down. If I started crying now, I wouldn't stop. I had to be a lawyer for my own life. I had to be the adult in a room full of children who were playing with matches. My phone buzzed. It was a voice note from Logan. I stared at his name on the screen. Logan. Brother. I didn't want to listen to it. I wanted to throw the phone out the window, but I needed evidence. I pressed play. Piper. Logan's voice filled the car. He sounded tired, breathless. Look, Mom called me. She is crying. Piper. She is literally crying in the kitchen right now because you threatened to call the cops. I don't know why you are doing this. I never wanted this drama. I just wanted the truck. I was going to refinance it in 6 months. I swear. Why do you have to be so intense? You are ruining this for me. You are ruining my start. Just call Gary and tell him it is fine. Please, do not wreck this family over a signature. The message ended. I sat in the silence. I never wanted this drama. As if drama was something that fell from the sky. Not the direct result of committing a felony. You are ruining this for me. The inversion of reality was breathtaking. In his mind, I was the aggressor. I was the one wielding the weapon. By protecting myself, I was attacking him. I saved the voice note. I exported it to my Google Drive. I saved it in a folder named Evidence. I looked back at the deal jacket notes I had typed. Address, 1402 Oak Street. That was the other knife in the back. By using their address, they had ensured that I would remain blind. The welcome packet from the bank? It would go to their mailbox. The payment coupons? Their mailbox. The late notices? Their mailbox. If I hadn't had credit monitoring, if I had been the person I was 5 years ago, afraid to look at my bank account, I wouldn't have known about this truck until 2 years from now when I tried to buy a house and got denied because of a repossession on my record. They banked on my ignorance. They banked on my trust. I started the car. I couldn't stay in the dealership lot. I felt like Gary was watching me from the window. I drove to a Starbucks 3 miles away. I needed neutral ground. I needed caffeine. I sat in the corner of the coffee shop and called Sarah. Sarah had been my best friend since college. She was a paralegal. She understood paperwork. Pick up, pick up, pick up, I whispered. Hello? Sarah's voice was groggy. It was not even 10 yet. Sarah, I said, they did it. They forged my signature. What? Sarah was instantly awake. Who? My family? Logan and my parents? They applied for the truck loan. It was conditionally approved. I just came from the dealership. I saw the application. They used my old Yahoo email address. Oh my God. Piper, Sarah said. Did you stop it? I think so. I said, I froze my credit. I scared the finance manager. But Sarah, They used my social. You have to file a police report, Sarah said. Immediately. I closed my eyes. I can't. Piper, Sarah said, her voice sharp. This isn't a borrowed sweater. This is $55,000. This is identity theft. If you don't file a report, the bank might not believe you. They might think you are just having buyer's remorse. You need an affidavit. It's my brother. Sarah. I said, if I file a report, he gets arrested. My parents get arrested. They arrested themselves when they signed your name. Sarah said, listen to me. If Logan defaults on that truck, and you know he will, the bank will come after you. They will garnish your wages. They will sue you. And if you say, oh, I didn't sign it, they will say, why didn't you report it when you found out? You become complicit if you stay silent. I know. I said, I know you are right, but, Sarah, if I do this, I lose them. I lose everyone. Christmas, birthdays, everything. I become the enemy forever. You already lost them. Piper, Sarah said softly. They stole from you. You don't steal from people you love. You are trying to save a relationship that is already dead. Tears finally spilled over, hot and fast down my cheeks. I wiped them away angrily with the back of my hand. I need a minute. I said, I need to think. Call me back. Sarah said, but don't wait too long. Every hour matters. I hung up. I sat there for an hour. I watched people order lattes. I watched a mom help her toddler with a juice box. I watched the normal world spinning on its axis while my world collapsed. I thought about the timeline. If I filed a report, the police would go to the dealership. They would pull the surveillance footage. They would see my mother and Logan sitting at Gary's desk. They would see my mother writing down the email address. It would be undeniable. But maybe I had stopped it. Maybe Gary was scared enough. Maybe he had shredded the application. Maybe if I just kept my credit frozen, the deal would die, and we could all go back to our corners. I would be the estranged bitch sister, but at least I wouldn't be the sister who sent her brother to jail. My phone pinged. I looked down. It was a text from my cousin Mike. Mike sent a photo. I frowned. Mike never texted me. I opened the message. The photo took a second to load on the coffee shop Wi-Fi. It was a picture of a table at a restaurant, a Chili's or an Applebee's. There was a basket of chips in the middle. My parents were there, raising margarita glasses. Logan was in the center. He was holding up a set of keys. Attached to the keys was a plastic dealership tag. I zoomed in. Congrats! Welcome to the Sunridge family. Below the photo, a text from Mike. Oops, wrong chat, LOL, but looks like things worked out. You should come celebrate. It wasn't the wrong chat. He sent it to me on purpose. He sent it to show me that I had lost, that my no didn't matter, that my freeze was too late. They had the truck. Gary hadn't put a hold on the deal. He had pushed it through. He must have rushed the funding before the freeze hit the system, or maybe the conditional approval was enough to let the truck roll off the lot. Logan was driving a $55,000 liability down the street, and my name was the engine that made it run. I stared at Logan's smiling face. He didn't look guilty. He looked triumphant. He looked like a man who had gotten away with it. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, final sound of a bridge collapsing into the sea. I saved the photo. I added it to the evidence folder. Then I closed my laptop. I put my coffee cup in the trash. I walked out to my car. I didn't drive home. I drove toward the police station in downtown Briar Glen. Sarah was right. I hadn't declared war. They had. I was just finally deciding to fight back. I drove back to Sunridge Motors with a cold, metallic taste in my mouth. It was the taste of adrenaline that had nowhere to go, souring into dread. The sky had cleared, turning a harsh, bright blue that made everything look too sharp, too real. When I pulled into the lot, I didn't have to look for them. They were center stage. The white truck was parked near the exit, no longer displaying the yellow sold tag. Now, it had a temporary paper license plate taped to the rear window. It was ready to leave. It was legal. And there they were, the tableau of the happy American family. My mother, Diane, was standing by the passenger door. She was wearing her good coat, the camel-colored wool one she saved for church and weddings. She was beaming, her hand resting on the side mirror of the truck like she was petting a prize horse. My father was kicking the tires, nodding with a serious, satisfied expression, and Logan was climbing into the driver's seat. He looked like a king. He adjusted the rearview mirror. He ran his hand over the steering wheel. He was laughing at something my father said. They looked relieved. They looked like people who had solved a problem. I parked my sedan 3 rows away and got out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly. I walked toward them across the asphalt. My heels clicked on the pavement. A steady, rhythmic countdown. My mother saw me first. Her smile didn't drop. It froze. It became a mask. She tapped my father's arm. He looked up, his face hardening. Logan saw me in the side mirror. He didn't get out. He just rolled down the window, leaning his arm on the sill, trying to look casual. "Hey, Pip," he called out. "You missed the signing." I stopped 5 feet from the truck. The engine was idling, a deep, guttural rumble that vibrated in the soles of my shoes. "I missed the signing because I wasn't invited," I said, "and because I didn't agree to it." My mother stepped forward, placing herself between me and the truck. "Piper, do not start this here. We are celebrating. Look at it." "It is beautiful. It is $55,000, I said, "and it is in my name." Logan laughed, shaking his head. "No, it isn't. That is the beauty of it." "Gary found a way." I looked at him. "Found a way?" "Yeah," Logan said. "He worked some magic with the bank. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to sign. You didn't have to come in. You are completely off the hook for the legwork. You should be happy." My stomach twisted. He actually believed it, or he had convinced himself to believe it. He thought that if I didn't physically hold the pen, I wasn't involved. He thought fraud was a victimless administrative loophole. "Logan," I said, my voice low, "if I didn't sign it, and you didn't sign it as me, then who did? Because the bank has a signature." My mother made a dismissive noise. "You are obsessed with details. It is done. The truck is ours. Just be happy for your brother." She looked at me with eyes that were terrifyingly void of guilt. She genuinely felt entitled to this. She felt that my credit score was a family resource, like a shared Netflix password. "I am not happy." I said, "I am terrified for you, because you are driving a stolen vehicle." "It is not stolen," my father barked. "We paid the down payment. We have the keys. You obtained it by fraud." I said, "That is theft. Get in the truck." "Diane," my father said, opening the passenger door. "We are leaving. She is just jealous." My mother climbed up into the cab. It was a high climb. She looked down at me from the passenger seat, her face framed by the massive window. "You need to calm down. Piper," she said through the glass, "go home and take a bath. You look terrible." Logan revved the engine. The sound was aggressive, a mechanical roar that drowned out my response. He put the truck in gear and pulled out of the lot, the tires crunching on the gravel. I stood there in the exhaust fumes, watching the temporary tag fade into traffic. Temporary, that was the word they kept using. It was a temporary loan, a temporary fix, but the damage they were doing was permanent. I didn't follow them. I went back to my car and picked up my phone. I had one goal now. I needed to see the document. I needed to see the ink. I called Redwood Community Bank again. I navigated the menu with muscle memory now. When the representative answered, I didn't ask for information. I demanded a supervisor. "This is regarding a case of active identity theft involving a dealership." I said, "I have already placed a fraud alert. I need to speak to the fraud department supervisor immediately." They transferred me. I waited on hold for 20 minutes, staring at the empty parking spot where the truck had been. Finally, a woman named Karen came on the line. Her voice was brisk, no nonsense. "Ms. Stewart, I see the notes on your account. You are disputing the inquiry and the loan origination. I am telling you I did not sign the contract." I said, "The vehicle has just left the lot. I need you to look at the electronic document repository. I need you to look at the signature page for the co-borrower." "One moment," Karen said. I heard clicking. Okay, I have the contract here, she said. It was uploaded by the dealer 2 hours ago. Does the signature match my name? I asked. It says Piper Stewart. She said, Does it look like a signature? I asked. Or does it look like a copy? I can't make that determination. Karen said, But I can send you a secure link to view the document so you can verify it yourself. If you confirm it is not yours, we can proceed with the fraud packet. Send it. I said. She asked for my email. I gave her my work email, my real one. I opened the email on my phone right there in the car. I clicked the secure link, entered the code she texted me, and the PDF opened. I scrolled past the vehicle specs, past the interest rate, 8.9%, which was atrocious, past the loan term, 72 months. I got to the signature page. There it was. Co-borrower. Piper Stewart. I zoomed in. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. It wasn't just that it wasn't my signature, it was that I knew whose it was. It was a cursive script, looping and slightly slanted to the left. The P in Piper had a specific, unnecessary flourish at the top, a little curlicue that wasn't standard. I had seen that P 1,000 times. I had seen it on permission slips when I was in elementary school. I had seen it on checks written to the grocery store. I had seen it on birthday cards. It was my mother's handwriting. She hadn't even tried to disguise it. She had just written my name with her own hand. I remembered something then, a memory from my childhood that I had filed away as harmless. I was 12, and a letter had come from my father from the insurance company. He was at work. My mother had picked it up, opened it, read it, and then said, "Oh, he needs to sign this." She had picked up a pen and signed Mark Stewart at the bottom. "Is that okay?" I had asked. "It is fine," she had said, not even looking up. "I am his wife. It is the same thing." She didn't see boundaries. She saw extensions of herself. My father was an extension. I was an extension. My name was just another tool in her drawer. She had stood in that finance office, looked Gary in the eye, and signed my name while he watched. And Gary, eager for the commission, had looked the other way. I took a screenshot of the signature. I felt sick. Not metaphorically. I physically felt bile rise in my throat. I opened the car door and dry heaved onto the pavement. Nothing came up but acid. I wiped my mouth with a tissue. I sat back up. The nausea was clarity. It was my body rejecting the lie. I started the car. I didn't drive home. I drove to the Briar Glen police station. The station was a brick building that smelled of floor wax and stale coffee, just like the dealership, but without the pretense of customer service. I walked up to the front desk. There was a glass partition. An officer was sitting behind it, typing. "Can I help you?" he asked, not looking up. "I need to file a report." I said, "What kind of report?" "Identity theft." I said, "And forgery." He looked up then. He saw my blazer, my pale face, the way I was gripping my phone. "Okay," he said. "Here is the form. You can fill it out over there." He slid a clipboard under the glass. I took it to a metal table bolted to the floor. The form was simple: date of incident, location of incident, description of incident. Then the hard part: suspect information. I held the pen. The tip hovered over the paper. If I wrote their names, it was real. It was a legal record. It was a bell that could not be unrung. I thought about the truck leaving the lot. I thought about my mother telling me I looked terrible. I thought about Logan saying, "You didn't have to do anything. They had already rung the bell. I was just reporting the sound." I wrote, "Diane Stewart." I wrote, "Logan Stewart." I wrote, "Gary last name unknown. Finance manager at Sunridge Motors." I filled out the narrative. Suspects used my personal information to obtain a vehicle loan in the amount of $55,000 without my consent. Suspect Diane Stewart signed my name on the loan documents. I walked back to the window and slid the clipboard under the glass. The officer picked it up. He read it. He raised his eyebrows. "Family?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He nodded, a slow, grim nod. "We see a lot of that." He typed something into his computer. "Okay, I am generating a case number. A detective will be assigned to follow up. You will need this case number for the bank and the credit bureaus. He handed me a small slip of paper with a number printed on it. Case 2026-0914. It was just a number, but it felt like a shield. I walked out of the station. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I felt hollowed out, scraped clean, but I also felt steady, for the first time in days. My hands weren't shaking. I had done the unthinkable. I had chosen myself. The silence from my family ended the next morning. I was at work, sitting in my cubicle, trying to focus on a shipping manifest for a load of lumber going to Oregon. My phone was on silent, face up on my desk. It lit up. Aunt Linda. Then again, Aunt Linda. Then a text. Piper. Call me immediately. Your mother is distraught. I ignored it. Then a text from my cousin Mike. What the hell is wrong with you? The cops called the house? I turned the phone over. But the assault wasn't just digital. It was narrative. I learned later, through the grapevine of the few sane relatives I still spoke to, what was being said. Diane wasn't telling people I had reported them for fraud. That would require admitting the fraud. Instead, she was telling a different story. She told Aunt Linda that I was having a mental breakdown. Piper is under so much stress at work. She reportedly said, sobbing. She is confused. She thinks we did something to hurt her. She is imagining things. We are just trying to get her help. It was brilliant. It mobilized the family's pity while discrediting my reality. If I was unstable, then my police report was just a symptom of my illness, not a record of their crime. My father took a different tact. He went with anger. He told my Uncle Jerry that I was ungrateful and vindictive. She is jealous of Logan. He told them, she can't stand to see him succeed. She wants to be the only successful one in the family. She is trying to sabotage him. It was a coordinated campaign to isolate me, and it was working. By noon, I had received 4 messages from different relatives, all variations of, we love you, please get help, or don't tear this family apart. I didn't respond to any of them. I saved every screenshot. My evidence folder was growing, but the real blow came at 2 p.m. I received a calendar invite. Meeting with HR. Urgent. My heart hammered. I worked at Apex Logistics. I was a model employee. I had never had a meeting with HR that wasn't a performance review. I walked into the HR manager's office. Susan was a kind woman, but she looked uncomfortable. She didn't offer me candy from the bowl on her desk. Close the door. Piper, she said. I sat down. Susan slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a printout of an email to hrapexlogistics.com. Subject: Concern regarding Piper Stewart. To whom it may concern, I am writing this anonymously because I am afraid of retaliation. You should know that your employee, Piper Stewart, is currently involved in a fraud investigation involving her family. She is financially unstable and has been making threats against her own parents to extort money. I don't think someone with this kind of volatility should be managing sensitive company accounts. A concerned citizen. I read the email. The words swam before my eyes. Extort money, volatility. This wasn't just family drama. This was a nuclear strike on my livelihood. They knew my job was my pride. They knew it was the source of my independence. Threatening it was the ultimate power move. I looked up at Susan. This is a lie, I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. This is retaliation because I filed a police report yesterday against my brother and mother for identity theft. They forged my signature on a $55,000 loan. Susan blinked. Identity theft? Yes, I said. I have the case number. I have the fraud affidavit. This email. I tapped the paper. This is them trying to scare me into dropping the case. They are trying to get me fired so I lose the resources to fight them. Susan looked at the email, then back at me. She saw the exhaustion in my eyes, but she also saw the steel. She took the paper back. Okay. Piper, thank you for the context. Is my job in danger? I asked. Susan sighed. We investigate all complaints, but Anonymous emails with vague accusations usually don't hold much water, especially if you have a police report documenting that you are the victim. Not the perpetrator. I can bring you a copy of the report tomorrow. I said, "Do that." She said, "And Piper?" "Yes." "I am sorry you are going through this." I walked out of her office. My legs felt heavy. They had crossed a line I didn't know existed. They were willing to burn down my career to protect their truck. They didn't care if I couldn't pay my rent. As long as Logan could drive his legacy, I went back to my desk. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I felt a cold resolve settling in my chest, like concrete hardening. I called the number on the police slip. I asked to speak to the detective assigned to my case. Detective Miller called me back an hour later. He sounded tired, but sharp. "Ms. Stewart," he said, "I have your report. I have reviewed the preliminary info. You are alleging your mother signed your name?" "I have the document." I said, "I have a screenshot of the signature." "It is her handwriting." "Okay," Miller said. "Here's the reality. Ms. Stewart, these cases are messy. The bank doesn't want to prosecute because they just want their money. The dealership doesn't want to prosecute because they don't want the bad press. Usually, they just want the loan paid. I don't want the loan paid." I said, "I want my name off of it." Miller paused. "If you want your name off, you have to prove it wasn't you. And since you are family, the presumption is that you authorized it verbally, even if you didn't sign it physically. That is the defense they will use. They will say you gave verbal consent and your mother acted as your agent. I never gave consent." I said no repeatedly. "Do you have that in writing?" Miller asked. "Text messages? Emails?" "No." I said, "It was verbal." "At dinner?" Miller hummed. "That makes it he said, she said. But here's the thing that might help you." I pulled the initial credit inquiry logs, and the first inquiry from Redwood Community Bank wasn't yesterday. He said, "And it wasn't the day before." "What do you mean?" I asked. "There was a pre-qualification soft pull done 2 weeks ago." Miller said, "October 1st. 2 weeks ago?" I asked. "Yes. And following that soft pull, a disclosure packet was mailed out. Standard procedure." "Mailed where?" I asked, though I knew the answer. 1402 Oak Street. Miller said, "My parents' house." "So," Miller continued, "someone received that packet, someone opened it, someone saw the terms. And then, 2 weeks later, they walked into the dealership to finalize it. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Ms. Stewart, this was planned. They tested the waters, they got the paperwork, and they waited until they thought you wouldn't notice." I sat in my cubicle, the phone pressed to my ear. 2 weeks ago, I had gone to lunch with my mother. She had paid. She had smiled. She had asked about my job. She had been planning this the whole time. The dinner where Logan announced the truck wasn't a pitch. It was a play. They had already cast me in the role of co-signer. They were just waiting to see if I would read the lines willingly. When I didn't, they just read them for me. "This helps, right?" I asked Miller. "It proves premeditation." "It helps," Miller said, "but you have to stay the course. If you wobble, if you say, 'Maybe I said it was okay' to anyone, the whole case falls apart. You have to be aggressive. You have to treat them like strangers who robbed you." "Can you do that?" I thought about the email to HR. I thought about the text from Mike. "Yes," I said, "I can do that." I got home at 6. My apartment felt like a fortress under siege. I checked the locks. I checked the windows. I went to the mailbox. I usually checked it every day. But I had missed yesterday. There was a stack of mail, bills, flyers, and one white envelope. It had no return address, but the handwriting on the front was unmistakable. It was my mother's script, the same script that was on the loan document. It was addressed to me, Piper Stewart, but it had been forwarded. There was a yellow sticker on it from the post office, but under that, I could see my parents' address crossed out. My mother had put it in a new envelope and mailed it to me. Why? I opened it. Inside was another envelope, a window envelope. Redwood Community Bank. It was the welcome letter. "Dear Logan and Piper Stewart, welcome to the Redwood family. Thank you for choosing us for your auto financing needs. Enclosed is your payment schedule. My mother had sent it to me. She had opened it, seen it, and mailed it to me. There was a sticky note attached to the bank letter, a yellow post-it note. Piper, stop being dramatic. Here is the info. Just keep it for your records. Logan is handling it. Call us when you are ready to apologize. Love, Mom. I stared at the note. Call us when you are ready to apologize. She wasn't hiding the evidence. She was handing it to me. She was so confident in her control over me, so certain that I would never actually pull the trigger on a legal battle, that she sent me the proof of her crime with a note telling me to say sorry. She didn't know about the police report yet. She didn't know about the conversation with Detective Miller. She thought this was just another family spat that would end with me caving in and paying the bill. My hands shook, not from fear this time, from a cold, hard rage. I took a picture of the letter. I took a picture of the sticky note. Love, Mom. I added it to the folder. Then I walked over to my desk, pulled out a fresh legal pad, and uncapped a pen. I wasn't going to call them. I wasn't going to apologize. I was going to sue them. I wrote the date at the top of the page. October 16th. The war is on. The office of Elias Thorne was located in a converted brick house on the edge of the Hollow Creek County Business District. It smelled of old paper and peppermint tea. Elias was not a flashy television lawyer. He was a consumer protection attorney who wore cardigans and looked at documents over the rim of his glasses with the expression of a disappointed librarian. I sat across from him on a Wednesday morning. 3 days after I filed the police report, I had a binder in my lap. I had organized everything: the timeline, the screenshots, the credit inquiries, the sticky note from my mother. Elias turned the page of my file. His hands were steady. So, he said, his voice gravelly and calm, let me see if I have the architecture of this correct. Your brother wants a truck. Your parents want him to have the truck. You said no. They acquired the truck anyway, using your credentials, a forged signature, and a fake email address. And now, they are attempting to gaslight you into believing this is a standard family transaction. That is correct, I said. And you have filed a police report? Case number 2-0260914. I said. Elias nodded. Good. Most people wait too long. They wait until the first collection call. You are ahead of the curve, Piper. But you need to understand something. We are not filing a lawsuit to punish them. We are filing to survive them. Survive them? I asked. If we do not aggressively disconnect you from this loan, Elias said, leaning forward, the bank will view you as complicit. If Logan defaults, and based on his credit history, he will, they will sue you. They will garnish your wages. They will put a lien on your future accounts. We are not fighting for an apology. We are fighting for your financial existence. He opened his laptop. I am sending formal dispute letters today, he said, to Redwood Community Bank, to Sunridge Motors, to the credit bureaus. We are demanding the full application packet. We are demanding the IP address data of the computer that submitted the application. We are demanding the call logs from the dealership, and we are demanding a copy of the identification they used to verify you. Identification? I asked. I wasn't there. How could they verify me? Elias looked at me over his glasses. Dealerships are required to scan a driver's license. If you were not there, they either scanned an old copy on file, or they scanned a fake one. Either way, once we force them to produce it, we have them. I felt a shiver go through me. A fake ID? Or an old one my mother had kept in her important papers file? From this moment on, Elias said, you do not speak to your family on the phone. You do not answer their calls. You do not go to dinner. If they come to your house, you do not open the door. You communicate only in writing. If they text you, you screenshot it. If they email you, you forward it to me. We are building a fortress. Piper, and you are the queen who stays inside the keep. I nodded. I felt a strange sense of relief. I didn't have to be the daughter anymore. I was the client. The effect of Elias's letters was almost instant. 2 days later, I received an email from Elias. Subject: Update from Sunridge. Piper, the dealership's general counsel contacted me this morning. They are suddenly very eager to cooperate. They claim the finance manager, Gary, acted outside of protocol. They are offering to unwind the deal if you sign a non-disclosure agreement. I told them absolutely not. We are not sweeping this under the rug. I also received the initial document dump. You need to come in. I went back to the brick house on my lunch break. Elias had a stack of papers on his desk. Look at this, he said, sliding a document toward me. It was a pay stub. It had the logo of my company, Apex Logistics. At the top, it had my name. It had my address, my parents' address, but the numbers were wrong. My annual salary was $65,000. The pay stub listed my year-to-date earnings in a way that calculated out to $82,000, and the font was wrong. The numbers were in Times New Roman, but the headings were in Arial. I stared at it. It was a clumsy, cut-and-paste job. Someone had taken an old pay stub of mine, maybe from when I lived at home, or maybe one I had left on a counter during a visit, and they had used a PDF editor, or maybe just whiteout and a copier to change the numbers. This isn't mine, I whispered. I mean, the template is, but the numbers are fake. This is what they used to prove you could afford the payments. Elias said, this is criminal forgery. Piper, it is not just signing a name. It is fabricating evidence of income. I felt sick. Who did this? Elias pointed to a timestamp at the bottom of the page. It was faxed from a FedEx office on Main Street on October 13th, the day before the application. My mother didn't know how to use PDF editors. My father barely knew how to text. Logan. I said, Logan did this. He is the only one who knows how to edit documents like this. Elias nodded. Likely. But here is the other thing. He slid another paper across. It was an email chain between Gary, the finance manager, and a generic email address. Loan coordinator 04gmail.com. Gary. Hey Caleb. The Stewart file is a little thin on the brother's side. The sister has the score, but we need more income verification for her to carry the debt-to-income ratio. Caleb. No worries. I will get the docs. Just hold the approval. Caleb. The name hit me like a physical blow. Caleb Rusk. He was a family friend. He had grown up 2 streets over. He used to come to our barbecues. He was in his 40s now. I remembered my mother mentioning him years ago. Caleb is doing so well. He works in finance now. He helped us refinance the credit card debt. Caleb Rusk works for Redwood Community Bank? I asked. Elias shook his head. Not directly. He works as an independent loan coordinator. He is a broker. He brings deals to the bank, and it looks like he is the one who greased the wheels for your family. He is the one who told them they needed a pay stub. He is the one who accepted it without verifying it with your employer. It was a conspiracy. It wasn't just my family being desperate. It was my family utilizing a network of helpful friends to bypass the law. I walked out of Elias's office feeling like the ground was made of glass. Every step I took revealed a new crack. My parents hadn't just made a mistake. They had recruited a team. That night, the fortress was breached. I was in my apartment, heating up soup. It was 7 p.m. It was dark outside. There was a knock at the door. Not a polite knock. A heavy, authoritative pounding. 3 sharp raps. I froze. I knew that knock. It was the knock my father used when he was coming to fix something. I crept to the peephole. It was Mark, my father. He was wearing his work jacket. He looked tired. He was holding a paper bag from a bakery. Donuts. Probably. The universal peace offering of the Stewart family. I didn't open the door. Piper! He called out. I know you're in there. I saw your car. Open up. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. My heart was racing. Do not open the door, Elias had said. Piper, don't be ridiculous, he said, his voice muffled by the door. I brought apple fritters. Let's just talk. I stayed silent. I heard him sigh, a heavy, frustrated sound. Look, he said, speaking to the wood, your mother is a mess. She can't stop crying. You have these lawyers sending letters to the dealership? To Caleb? You are going to get people fired. Piper. Good people. Caleb has kids. I closed my eyes. Caleb has kids. That was the weapon. Guilt. They didn't mean any harm. My father continued. We just wanted to help Logan get a start, and now you are turning it into a federal case. Literally. I took a breath. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door 3 inches. Keeping the chain on, my father's face appeared in the gap. He looked relieved, then annoyed. Take the chain off. Piper, he said. No, I said. He blinked. He looked at the chain, then at my face. I looked calm, but my hands were shaking behind the door. Dad, you cannot be here, I said. My lawyer told me not to speak to you. Lawyer. He spat the word like it was a curse. You are spending money on a lawyer to attack your own blood? You know how much that truck means to Logan. I know how much $55,000 means to me. I said, listen, he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. He held up the bag of donuts. We can fix this. We have a plan. I will handle the payments, okay? I will pay the truck note. You won't have to pay a dime. We will set up an auto draft from my account. You just drop the fraud report. Tell the bank it was a misunderstanding, and we move on. Nobody gets hurt. I looked at him. I looked at the lines around his eyes, the gray in his beard. I loved him. I remembered him teaching me to ride a bike in the church parking lot. I remembered him carrying me on his shoulders at the county fair. But I also saw the man who had driven me to Sunridge Motors 10 years ago and told me to sign a loan for him, promising he would pay it, and then missing 3 payments in a row. Dad, I said softly, you can't afford $900 a month. You are behind on the mortgage. His face hardened. Who told you that? Mom told me. I lied. She didn't. But I knew it was true. It doesn't matter, he said. I will pick up extra shifts. I will make it work. Just don't destroy your brother's life over a signature. It is not just a signature. Dad, I said, it is a fake pay stub. It is a fake email. It is identity theft. And if I agree to your plan, if I say it was a misunderstanding, then I am accepting the debt. And when you miss a payment, and you will, I am the one who gets sued. I am the one who loses my apartment. I will not let that happen, he shouted. The volume made me flinch. He saw it and stopped. Piper, please, he said, his voice breaking. He looked suddenly old. If this investigation goes on, they are going to look at everything. They are going to look at Caleb. They are going to look at other things. Other things? I realized then that this wasn't just about the truck. It was about a house of cards. If the police started pulling threads, the whole structure might come down. I cannot help you. Dad, I said, you did this. You have to fix it. And the only way to fix it is for Logan to return the truck and for you to admit what you did. He looked at me for a long moment. The affection drained out of his eyes, replaced by a cold, dull resolve. You are really going to do this, he said. You are going to choose a bank over your father. I am choosing the truth. I said. He didn't say anything else. He didn't hand me the donuts. He turned around and walked down the hallway. He didn't look back. I closed the door and locked the deadbolt. I slid the chain back into place. I sank down onto the floor of the entryway and put my head in my hands. I didn't cry. I just felt a deep, aching exhaustion. I was the villain now, in their story. I was the monster who wouldn't accept an apple fritter and a promise. The next day, Elias called me with more bad news. It gets worse, he said. How? I asked. I was sitting at my desk at work, staring at a spreadsheet I couldn't focus on. My investigator pulled a UCC filing search. Elias said, a UCC filing is what lenders do when they take collateral for a business loan. I know what it is. I said, Logan has already leveraged the truck. Elias said, what? He took out a small business line of credit 2 days ago. Elias said, $5,000, from a predatory online lender. He used the truck as the secured asset, but he doesn't own the truck. I said, the bank owns the truck. He has the registration. Elias said, or at least, the temporary one. These online lenders don't check deep. He stacked the debt. Piper. He used a stolen asset to secure more debt. My head spun. If Logan defaulted on the $5,000 loan, that lender would try to repossess the truck. But Redwood Community Bank also had a lien on the truck, and my name was on the Redwood loan. It was a legal knot that was tightening by the hour. "We have to move faster." I said. "We are," Elias said, "but there is one more thing." He paused. "Have you checked your credit report this morning?" "No," I said. "I checked it yesterday. Check it now." Elias said, "Look at the authorized user section." I logged into the portal. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I scrolled down to revolving accounts. There was a new entry. Department store card. Status, authorized user. Primary account holder, Diane Stewart. Date, added, October 17th. I stared at the screen. My mother had added me as an authorized user to her credit card. Why? I asked Elias. Why would she do that? Muddying the waters. Elias said. His voice was grim. It is a strategy. If this goes to court, their lawyer will argue that you and your mother have a history of shared finances. They will show this account and say, "Look, she is on her mother's card. They share expenses." The truck was just another part of their financial partnership. They are trying to create a pattern of consent. They added me without asking. You don't need a signature to add an authorized user. Elias said, "You just need a name and a social," which they have. I felt a surge of rage so pure it almost felt good. It was calculating. It was malicious. They weren't just panicked. They were strategizing. They were planting evidence to frame me as a willing participant in their financial commune. Remove me. I told Elias. Remove me from the card. Document it. I am already drafting the letter. Elias said, "But Piper, you need to be prepared. They are not stopping. They are digging in." I left work early. I couldn't sit there anymore. I felt like I was being hunted. I drove home, taking a different route, checking my rearview mirror to see if the white truck was following me. It wasn't. I got home and started printing. I printed the authorized user alert. I printed the email from Elias about the UCC filing. I added them to the binder. The binder was 2 inches thick now. My phone buzzed. I looked at it. "Mom." I didn't answer. It buzzed again. "Mom." I didn't answer. Then a text came through. I looked at the preview on the lock screen. "If you go through with this, you won't have a family anymore." I stared at the words. It was the ultimatum, the nuclear option, for 33 years. Family had been the currency I paid for with my silence. I paid for it by fixing their mistakes. I paid for it by lending money I never got back. I paid for it by nodding when they had bad ideas and smiling when they ignored my boundaries. And now, the price had gone up. The price was now $55,000 and a felony. If I didn't pay, I was out. You won't have a family anymore. I thought about the dinner table where they had toasted the truck without me. I thought about the fake pay stub. I thought about the authorized user trap. I realized then that I didn't have a family anymore. I hadn't had one the moment they decided my credit score was more important than my consent. I picked up the phone. I didn't reply. I didn't type, "I love you" or "please don't do this." I took a screenshot, capture, the image saved to my camera roll. I opened my email. I attached the screenshot. To Elias Thorne. Subject, evidence, threat. I hit send. Then I put the phone down on the counter. The apartment was quiet. The sun was going down, casting long shadows across the floor. I was alone, but for the first time in my life. Being alone didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a position of strength. I walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. My sensible, paid-off sedan was sitting there. It was small. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. I turned back to the binder. I had work to do. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau complaint form was 7 pages long. I filled it out on my kitchen table on a Tuesday night, the only sound in the apartment being the hum of the refrigerator and the scratching of my pen. There's a specific kind of grief that comes with filing a formal complaint against your own blood. It is not the sharp, hot grief of a death. It is a slow, cold ache, like a bone that has been set improperly and now throbs with every change in the weather. I was not just reporting a crime. I was dismantling a mythology. I was writing down, in black ink, that the people who were supposed to protect me had looked at me and seen nothing but a credit score to be harvested. I finished the narrative section. I did not authorize this transaction. I did not sign this document. The co-borrower information was falsified. I sealed the envelope. I put a stamp on it. I walked it down to the mailbox on the corner. When I dropped it into the blue metal slot, I expected to feel panic. I expected to feel the urge to reach in and fish it back out. Instead, I felt a strange, terrifying clarity. The ambiguity was gone. The maybe they didn't mean it phase was over. The let's work it out phase was dead. I was now a plaintiff. They were now defendants. The next morning, the evidence began to solidify into something undeniable. I was at work when my phone rang. It was the fraud investigator from Redwood Community Bank, a man named Mr. Henderson. He sounded different than the customer service reps I had dealt with before. He sounded like a man who looked at digital footprints for a living. "Ms. Stewart," he said, "we have completed our initial forensic review of the application data." I gripped my pen. "And? We found some significant irregularities," he said. "The application was submitted electronically from an IP address associated with the Sunridge Motors internal network. That is standard for a dealership submission. However, the device location logs for the digital signature ceremony do not match." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means that when the primary borrower, your brother, signed his portion, the device was pinging a cell tower near the dealership, when the co-borrower, you, allegedly signed 3 minutes later. The device was pinging the exact same tower. In fact, the metadata suggests it was the same device, so I signed it from the dealership." I said, my voice flat, even though I wasn't there. "Exactly," Henderson said. "And there is one more thing. The two-factor authentication code sent to verify the co-borrower's identity was sent to a mobile number ending in 0199, my mother's number." I said, "That number is not associated with your credit profile in our historical database." Henderson said, "The system flagged it as a new number, but the loan officer manually overrode the flag." "Manually overrode it," I repeated. "Yes, the notes say, 'Borrower updated contact info in person.'" I closed my eyes. It was a smoking gun. They hadn't just faked my signature. They had faked the security check. They had stood there, my mother holding her phone, receiving the code meant for me, and reading it out loud to the finance manager while he typed it in. It was a conspiracy of 3. "Thank you. Mr. Henderson," I said, "will you put that in writing?" "It will be part of the official file," he said. "We are moving this to the confirmed fraud status. We will be sending a demand letter to the dealership to buy back the contract." I hung up. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt nauseous. The mechanics of the betrayal were so petty, so small. A text message, a manual override, a lie told in a fluorescent-lit office. An hour later, Elias Thorne called me. "Piper," he said, "Sunridge Motors wants to talk." "They want to apologize?" I asked. "No," Elias said. "They want to settle. They received our demand letter, and I think the bank just hit them with the buyback demand. They are panicking. They called me 10 minutes ago. They are offering to unwind the deal completely. They will take the truck back, cancel the loan, and wipe the inquiry from your credit report." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "That is it? It is over?" "There is a catch," Elias said. "Of course there is. They want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement." Elias said, "A strict one. You cannot discuss the incident. You cannot post about it. You cannot speak to regulators. And, this is the kicker, you have to withdraw your police report." "Withdraw the report," I said. "They are framing it as a misunderstanding," Elias said. "They are saying if you withdraw the report, they will fix the credit. Quid pro quo. They want silence. Piper. They want to bury this, so their compliance license isn't revoked." I looked out the window of my office. I watched the trucks rolling out of the yard, carrying lumber and steel, real things. Honest things. If I sign that, I said, I am helping them hide it. Yes, Elias said. If I sign that, Gary keeps his job. My mother gets away with forgery. Logan learns that he can steal from me, and the only consequence is that he has to return the toy. Essentially, yes, Elias said. But you get your credit restored immediately. You get your life back. The fighting stops today. I thought about the peace I had craved for years. I thought about how easy it would be to sign a piece of paper and make the monsters go away. But they wouldn't go away. They would just wait. They would wait for the next crisis, the next emergency, and they would know that I could be bought. They would know that my price was silence. Tell them no. I said, Piper, Elias said, his voice cautious. Litigation is long. It is ugly. If you refuse this, they will fight. They will attack your character. Let them. I said, I am not signing an NDA. I am not withdrawing the police report. The truck goes back because it was stolen, not because I agreed to keep their secrets. Elias was silent for a moment. Then I heard a sound that might have been a chuckle. I was hoping you would say that, he said. I will tell them to pound sand. The legal battle was escalating, but the family silence was deafening. They knew I had filed the report. They knew the bank was investigating, but they were still pretending, in their public life, that everything was fine. 2 days later, on a Saturday, I saw a post on my cousin Mike's Instagram story. It was a video, a pan of a backyard barbecue. There was smoke rising from a grill. There was music playing. I saw my aunt and uncle. I saw neighbors. And then I saw my parents. Mark was holding a beer, laughing. Diane was cutting a cake. It was my grandfather's 80th birthday. I had forgotten. In the chaos of the fraud, I had forgotten the date. I hadn't been invited. The realization hit me like a physical slap. My grandfather lived in a nursing home, but they brought him to Aunt Linda's house for the big milestones. I loved my grandfather. He was the one who taught me to save pennies in a jar. He was the one who told me, Piper, never let anyone sign your checks. They had cut me out. They were celebrating his life while actively destroying mine. And they had erased me from the guest list to keep the illusion intact. I looked at the timestamp on the video. 14 minutes ago. I stood up from my couch. I was wearing sweatpants. I took them off. I put on jeans. I put on a clean shirt. I put on my boots. I wasn't going to let them erase me. I drove to Aunt Linda's house. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A frantic, bird-like rhythm. I knew this was a bad idea. I knew Elias would tell me to stay in the fortress, but the fortress was lonely. And I was angry. Not the hot anger of a tantrum, but the cold, pressure cooker anger of injustice. I parked down the street. I walked up the driveway. I could hear the laughter from the backyard. I could smell the charcoal. I opened the side gate. The hinges squeaked. The conversation in the yard didn't stop immediately. It rippled out. People near the gate turned to look. Then they nudged the people next to them. Silence spread across the backyard like a spilled drink. I stood at the edge of the patio. There were 30 people there, cousins, aunts, uncles, neighbors. My grandfather was sitting in a wheelchair in the shade, a paper hat on his head, asleep. My mother was holding a paper plate with a slice of cake on it. She froze. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed. Piper, she said. Her voice was tight, a warning shot. We didn't think you would come. I wasn't invited. I said, my voice was not loud, but in the sudden silence, it carried. My father stepped forward. He looked flushed. Maybe 2 beers in. Piper, this is not the time. We are celebrating your grandfather. Do not make a scene. I am not making a scene. Dad, I said, I just came to wish Grandpa a happy birthday, and to ask you something. Logan was standing by the cooler. He looked terrified. He looked like a boy who had broken a window and was waiting for the homeowner to come out. Ask us what? My mother snapped. She set the cake down on a table. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to ruin everything? I am not the one who ruined it. I said. I walked closer. I stopped 10 feet from them. The guests were watching, their heads swiveling like they were watching a tennis match. I want to know why. I said, I looked at my mother. I want you to tell me, right here, in front of everyone, why did you sign my name? A gasp went through the group. Someone whispered, She did what? Diane's face turned a mottled red. She looked around at the neighbors. She looked at Aunt Linda. She was losing control of the narrative, and that terrified her more than the law. I did not sign your name, she shouted. It was a misunderstanding. You are having a breakdown. I held up my phone. I had the screenshot of the signature open. I turned the screen toward the crowd. This is the loan document, I said. This is the signature for $55,000. That is not my handwriting. That is yours. Mom, you put the little curl on the P. You have done it since I was in kindergarten. Put that away, my father yelled. He started to move toward me, aggressive. His hands balled into fists. My cousin Mike stepped in front of him. Whoa, Uncle Mark, chill. My father stopped, breathing hard. Diane looked at the phone, then she looked at me. Her face crumpled, not into sorrow, but into a vicious, defensive snarl. I did it for the family, she screamed. The confession hung in the air, raw and ugly. I did it because we needed it, she continued, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. You wouldn't help. You were sitting there in your nice apartment with your savings account, acting like you were better than us. We needed the truck. We needed the income. You would have come around eventually. You always come around. I stared at her. You would have come around. She didn't see me as a person with rights. She saw me as an obstacle to be managed. She believed that her need superseded my consent. She believed that because I was her daughter, I was her property. Why did you need the income so badly? I asked. Logan didn't have any contracts. The business was a fantasy. It wasn't a fantasy, Logan shouted from the cooler. I had guys ready to hire me. Shut up. Logan, I said, not looking at him. I kept my eyes on my mother. Why, Mom? Why risk a felony for a truck? She started to cry. It wasn't the fake crying she used to get her way. It was real. Ugly sobbing. She covered her face with her hands. My father slumped. The aggression drained out of him, leaving him looking small and defeated. We are 4 months behind on the mortgage, he said. His voice was a whisper. The backyard was dead silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. What? Aunt Linda asked from the back. Mark, you said everything was fine. We are behind. Mark said to the ground, and we owe money to some people. What people? I asked. Private lenders, he said. Hard money. The rates. They killed us. We took a loan to pay the credit cards, but the interest was 20% a week. We are drowning. Piper, we are drowning. I felt a cold shock. Sharks. They had borrowed from loan sharks. We thought... Mark gestured vaguely at the air. We thought if Logan got the truck, he could make $10,000 a month. He said he could. He said he had the work. We thought we could pay off the private guy, catch up on the mortgage, and then refinance the truck before you ever found out. I looked at Logan. You told them you could make $10,000 a month? I asked. Logan looked at his shoes. I could have, if I hustled. With what business plan? I asked. With what clients? I just needed a chance, Logan yelled, his voice cracking. I just needed the equipment. You gambled my life, I said. You bet my credit, my housing, my job, on a gamble that you could magically make $10,000 a month starting from zero. It was temporary, Logan pleaded. He took a step toward me. Piper, I swear. I knew you didn't sign, but I thought we would fix it in 3 months. I thought I would make the money, pay it down, and you would never know. I didn't think it was fraud. I thought it was just borrowing your name for a minute. Temporary fraud is still fraud. Logan, I said. He looked at me, and I saw the moment the reality hit him. He saw the police report in my eyes. He saw the courtroom. He saw the jail cell. His face went gray. But you aren't going to really press charges, right? He whispered. Not now that you know. We were desperate. Pip, we were going to lose the house. I looked at the house, the siding I had grown up with, the window of my old bedroom. If you had asked me for help with the mortgage, I would have helped. I said, "If you had told me about the loan sharks, I would have helped you find a lawyer. But you didn't ask. You stole—" "Piper, please," my mother sobbed. "We will lose everything. You already lost everything." I said, "You just haven't moved out yet." I turned around. I couldn't look at them anymore. The pity was there, swirling with the anger. But the pity was dangerous. Pity was the trap door they used to drop me into their chaos. I walked back to the gate. "Piper!" my father called after me. "Don't walk away. We are family." I pushed the gate open. The squeak sounded like a gavel banging. I walked down the driveway. I didn't look back. The fallout was immediate and vicious. That night, my phone blew up, not with apologies, but with threats. My attorney, Elias, called me on Sunday morning. "We have a problem," he said. "What now?" I asked. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the emotional hangover of the barbecue. "I got a call from a lawyer representing Caleb Rusk." Elias said, "The loan coordinator." I said, "Yes. He is claiming that you are defaming him. He says that by naming him in the police report and the bank dispute, you are damaging his professional reputation. He is threatening to sue you for slander if you don't retract your statements. He committed fraud." I said, "He knows that." Elias said, "But he is betting that you are weak. He is betting that the threat of a lawsuit will scare you into silence. He is trying to bully you. Piper, he is saying that since you weren't in the room, you can't prove he knew it was a forgery. He is claiming he was an innocent third party who just processed the paperwork your family gave him. He is lying." I said, "The email chain you found proving he knew about the fake pay stub." "Exactly," Elias said. "I told his lawyer that. I told him we have the email where he tells Gary to hold the approval while he gets the docs. I told him that if he sues us, we will depose him under oath and ask him about every loan he has processed in the last 5 years. And?" Silence. Elias said, "They hung up. But Piper, this is dangerous. Caleb is not your family. He is a professional scammer. He is scared. And scared men do stupid things. Keep the emails." I said, "Keep everything." I hung up. I went to the window. A black sedan was driving slowly past my apartment building. It wasn't a police car. It slowed down. The driver looking up at my windows, and then sped away. It might have been nothing. It might have been Caleb. I checked the locks again, on Wednesday. The official notice arrived. It came in a thick envelope from the Hollow Creek County Magistrate's Office. Notice of hearing, in the matter of Stewart versus Sunridge Motors / Redwood Community Bank. Related investigation. Police case 2026-0914. A preliminary hearing has been set to determine the validity of the disputed debt and to review evidence regarding the allegations of identity theft. Date: November 12th. Time: 9 a.m. It was real. It wasn't just letters and phone calls anymore. It was a courtroom, a judge, a witness stand. I held the paper. My hands were trembling. This was the point of no return. If I walked into that courtroom, I would be testifying against my mother. I would be pointing a finger at my brother. I would be putting the final nail in the coffin of my family life. I thought about the barbecue. I thought about the way my mother had looked at me, not with love, but with the desperate calculation of a cornered animal. You would have come around. They didn't love me. They loved my utility. They loved what I could provide. And when I stopped providing, they took it by force. I put the hearing notice in the binder. I grabbed my keys and went down to my car. I didn't have anywhere to go. I just needed to drive. I drove out of the city, onto the back roads where the trees were stripped bare for winter. The sky was a flat, slate gray. I pulled over on a gravel shoulder near an old cornfield. I turned off the engine. The silence of the car was absolute. I started to shake. It started in my hands and moved to my chest, a violent shivering that had nothing to do with the cold. I gripped the steering wheel. I cried. I cried for the brother I used to play t-ball with. I cried for the mother who used to make me cinnamon toast. I cried for the father who used to carry me on his shoulders. I grieved them as if they had died. Because the people who had done this, The people who had forged my name, faked my pay stub, and justified it with lies. Those people were strangers. My family had died the moment they decided I was a resource instead of a person. The crying lasted for 10 minutes. Then it stopped. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I looked at my eyes in the rearview mirror. They were red, but they were clear. I breathed in. I breathed out. The illusion was gone. The fake warmth of the family legacy was gone. The pretense that we were all in this together was gone. All that was left was the truth. And the truth was, I was free. I was alone, but I was free. I put the car in gear. I will tell the truth. I said to the empty car. I said it louder. I will tell the truth. I pulled back onto the road, the gravel crunching under my tires. I headed back toward the city, toward the courthouse, toward the end of the story. I was ready to burn it all down, even if I had to stand in the ashes alone. The courtroom in Hollow Creek County was not designed for high drama. It was a room of beige walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed with a low, headache-inducing frequency, and rows of wooden benches that had been polished by the anxiety of 1,000 defendants. It smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Elias Thorne. My hands were folded in my lap. They were cold, but they were steady. In front of me sat the binder. It was 3 inches thick now. It contained the autopsy of my relationship with my family, categorized by date, timestamp, and IP address. On the other side of the aisle sat the defendants. My parents, Diane and Mark, were sitting close together, holding hands. They were dressed in their Sunday best. My mother in a navy cardigan. My father in a pressed shirt that was slightly too tight at the neck. They looked small. They looked like confused elderly people who had wandered into the wrong room. Logan sat next to them. He was wearing a suit I had never seen before. It didn't fit him well. The shoulders were too broad. He was staring at the table, his leg bouncing up and down in a nervous, rapid rhythm that shook the water pitcher. And next to them was a lawyer I didn't recognize, a man with slicked-back hair who looked bored. Behind them, in the gallery, sat Gary, the finance manager from Sunridge Motors. He looked less arrogant than he had in his office. He looked sweaty. The hearing officer, a woman named Magistrate Reynolds, entered the room. She was stern, wearing glasses on a chain and a robe that seemed to swallow her small frame. "All rise," the bailiff said. We stood. The rustle of fabric was the only sound. Magistrate Reynolds sat down and opened a file. "We are here in the matter of the disputed debt regarding vehicle identification number ending in 4599. The complainant, Ms. Piper Stewart, alleges that this debt was incurred through identity theft and forgery. The respondents, Sunridge Motors and Redwood Community Bank, contest this claim." She looked up over her glasses. "Let us proceed." Elias stood up. He didn't make a speech. He didn't wave his arms. He simply opened the binder. "Your Honor," he said, his voice gravelly and calm. "The facts of this case are not emotional. They are digital. We are not here to discuss family dynamics. We are here to discuss a series of fraudulent acts committed on October 14th. He called me to the stand. I walked to the witness box. I swore to tell the truth. I sat down. The wood of the chair was hard against my spine. "Ms. Stewart," Elias said, "did you sign a credit application for a $55,000 truck on October 14th? "No," I said. "Did you authorize anyone else to sign it for you?" "No," I said. "Were you present at Sunridge Motors on that date?" "No," I said. "I was at work." Elias handed me the document, the deal jacket I had retrieved from Gary's office. "Can you identify the email address listed for the co-borrower on this document?" "Yes." I said, "It is piper.stewart, 2010 at yahoo.com. Is that your current email address?" "No." I said, "I have not used that address in 10 years. It is an account my mother has access to." Elias nodded. He walked back to the table and picked up another piece of paper. "I would like to submit into evidence Exhibit C, the IP address logs, provided by Redwood Community Bank's fraud department." He handed the paper to the magistrate. "These logs show that the electronic signature for the co-borrower was executed from a device located at the physical address of Sunridge Motors. at a time when Ms. Stewart's employment records, Exhibit D, show she was logged into her computer at Apex Logistics, 5 miles away. The magistrate looked at the paper. She looked at Gary in the gallery. Gary wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. Elias sat down. The lawyer for the dealership stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He walked toward me with a smile that was meant to be disarming but felt predatory. "Ms. Stewart," he said, "you are very close with your family, aren't you?" "I used to be," I said. "And you have helped them financially in the past?" "Yes," I said. "Is it possible, Ms. Stewart, that in the chaos of a family dinner or a phone call, you gave your brother verbal permission to use your information? Is it possible you said something like, 'Do whatever you need to do'?" "No," I said the opposite. I told them specifically that I would not co-sign. The lawyer chuckled. "But families have shorthand, don't they? Maybe you forgot? You have a stressful job. Maybe you gave the go-ahead and then, when you saw the payment amount, you got cold feet? This looks like buyer's remorse. Ms. Stewart, not fraud." I looked at him. He was trying to paint me as the hysterical woman, the confused girl who couldn't keep her story straight. I opened my binder. "I am not confused," I said. "On the night of October 14th, at 7 p.m., I was at my Aunt Linda's house. My mother told me the payment would be $912. I had never heard that number before. She knew it because she had already submitted the application 2 hours earlier. I didn't have cold feet. I had a knife in my back." The lawyer paused. He hadn't expected me to be precise. "I have no further questions," he said, and sat down. Then it was Gary's turn. He wasn't a lawyer, but he was allowed to speak for the dealership. He stood up, looking nervous. "Your Honor," he said, "we help families all the time. Sometimes the cosigner can't make it in, so the primary buyer signs for them with permission. It is a courtesy. We were just trying to help the Stewarts. Ms. Stewart's mother and brother were very convincing. They had all her info." Magistrate Reynolds looked at him. "A courtesy? You consider forging a signature a courtesy?" Gary stammered. "I didn't know it was a forgery. They said she was on board." Elias stood up again. "Your Honor, I would like to call attention to the identification document used for the application." He projected an image onto the screen at the front of the room. It was a driver's license. My driver's license. But it was the old design. The state had changed the layout 2 years ago. The photo was of me at 25, with bangs. "Ms. Stewart," Elias asked, "is this your current ID?" "No," I said. "I have the new real ID. It has a gold star in the corner. That license expired 3 years ago." Elias turned to the room. If Ms. Stewart had been present, or if she had sent a photo of her ID from her phone, she would have sent her current valid license. The only source for this expired license is a physical file kept in her parents' home. This proves she was not involved in the transaction. It proves the ID was stolen from a file cabinet. The room went silent. Then, Elias dropped the hammer, and regarding the courtesy mentioned by the dealership, "We have subpoenaed the call logs from Mr. Caleb Rusk, a loan coordinator affiliated with the bank." A murmur went through the room. My father's head snapped up. "These logs show 3 calls between Mr. Rusk and the finance office at Sunridge Motors on the morning of the 14th. And we have an email, Exhibit F, where Mr. Rusk writes, quote, 'I will get the docs. Just hold the approval.'" Elias looked at Gary. "Mr. Rusk is not here today, but his involvement makes one thing clear. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a coordinated effort to bypass lending regulations using an insider." Gary looked down at his shoes. The bus had arrived, and he had just been thrown under it. Magistrate Reynolds turned her gaze to the defense table. "Mr. Stewart," she said to Logan, "please stand." Logan stood up. He looked shaky. He looked like he was going to vomit. "Did you sign your sister's name?" Reynolds asked. Logan's mouth opened and closed. He looked at our mother. She was staring straight ahead, her face rigid. Logan started. "I didn't sign it. Mom did." A gasp from the back of the room. My Aunt Linda was there. But I knew. Logan added quickly, his voice rising to a desperate plead. I knew she was doing it. But, Your Honor, I just needed a chance. I had the contracts. I was going to pay it back. It was just supposed to be for a few months until I could refinance. Magistrate Reynolds didn't look impressed. She looked tired. Mr. Stewart, intent to repay is not a defense for fraud. You cannot borrow someone's identity like a lawnmower. But it is my sister, Logan shouted. He was crying now. It is family. She should have helped me. Magistrate Reynolds banged her gavel. One sharp crack that cut through his whining. Sit down, Mr. Stewart. She turned to my parents. Mrs. Stewart, do you have anything to say? My mother stood up. She smoothed her cardigan. She looked at me, and for a second, I saw the hate in her eyes. But then she turned to the magistrate, and her face softened into the mask of the grieving mother. We are heartbroken, she said, her voice wobbling perfectly. We love Piper. We would never hurt her. We were in a desperate situation with our house. We thought as a family we could pull together. We didn't realize she would take it this far. We didn't realize she would try to put her own brother in jail. She took a tissue and dabbed at her eyes. She is confused. Diane continued. She has been very unstable lately. We are just worried about her mental health. I felt the rage spike in my chest, hot and sharp, even here, under oath. She was gaslighting me. She was painting me as the villain. Elias didn't say anything. He just handed a single piece of paper to the magistrate. Your Honor, Elias said softly, this is Exhibit G, a text message sent from Diane Stewart to the plaintiff on October 17th. Magistrate Reynolds took the paper. She adjusted her glasses. She read it in silence. Then she looked up. Her eyes were hard. She read it aloud. If you go through with this, you won't have a family anymore. The words hung in the sterile air of the courtroom. They sounded brutal. They sounded exactly like what they were. Blackmail. Reynolds looked at my mother. Mrs. Stewart, that does not sound like the concern of a worried mother. That sounds like a threat from a co-conspirator. My mother sat down. She didn't look at me. She looked at the table. Her face was pale. The mask had slipped, and everyone had seen what was underneath. Magistrate Reynolds closed the file. I have heard enough, she said. She clasped her hands. Based on the evidence presented, specifically the digital location logs, the use of an expired identification document, and the admission of the co-defendant, I find that the debt in question is invalid as it pertains to Ms. Piper Stewart. She looked at the bank representative. Redwood Community Bank is ordered to immediately remove Ms. Stewart from the loan obligation. You are ordered to issue corrections to all 3 credit bureaus within 48 hours. The inquiry must be deleted. She looked at Gary. Sunridge Motors is ordered to refund all monies paid and retitle the vehicle. Then she looked at my family. Furthermore, given the clear evidence of forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy involving a bank insider, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for a full criminal investigation. This is not a civil dispute. This is a crime. She banged the gavel. Hearing adjourned, the sound of the gavel was the loudest thing I had ever heard. It was the sound of a wall coming down. I sat there for a moment. I couldn't move. I felt lightheaded. Elias touched my arm. We did it. Piper, he said quietly, you are free. I stood up. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I gathered my binder. I gathered the evidence of my trauma. I turned to leave. My family was still sitting at their table. They looked shell-shocked. My mother was weeping into her hands, but nobody was comforting her. My father was staring at the wall. Logan was looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. I walked past them. I didn't stop. I walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway. It wasn't empty. My extended family was there. Aunt Linda, Uncle Jerry, Cousin Mike. They had been waiting in the hall, unable to get into the small courtroom. They swarmed me. Piper, Aunt Linda said, grabbing my arm. What happened? Is it true? Is Logan going to jail? The magistrate referred it to the DA. I said, I pulled my arm away. Mike got in my face. He looked angry. You happy now? You happy you destroyed your parents? They are going to lose the house. Piper, they destroyed themselves. Mike, I said, I just told the truth. Aunt Linda shook her head. Her face was pinched with disapproval. You could have handled this privately. Piper, you didn't have to drag everyone through the mud. You could have just paid it, and we would have paid you back. I looked at her. I looked at all of them. You realized, in that moment, that private was a code word. Private meant quiet. Quiet meant compliant. Handle it privately meant sacrifice yourself so we don't have to be uncomfortable. It meant I should have absorbed the $55,000 blow to keep their reputation intact. It meant I should have let them cannibalize my future to feed their present. I looked at Aunt Linda. I did handle it privately. I said no. They didn't listen. So now we are handling it publicly. I pushed past them. I walked toward the glass doors of the exit. The sun was shining outside, bright and indifferent. I heard footsteps behind me. Pip. It was Logan. I stopped. I didn't turn around at first. I took a deep breath. Then I turned. He was standing 10 feet away. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. His suit was rumpled. His eyes were red. I didn't think it would go this far. He said. His voice was a whisper. I really didn't. I just wanted the truck. I didn't think you would hate me this much. I looked at him. I looked at the brother I had shared a bunk bed with. I looked at the boy I had protected from bullies on the playground. I don't hate you. Logan, I said. Then why? He asked. Why did you do this? Because you stole my name. I said. He shook his head. It was just a signature. No. I said. It was my identity. It was my safety. You looked at me and you didn't see a sister. You saw a credit score. You saw a tool you could use to get what you wanted. I took a step back. It didn't go too far today. Logan, I said, it went too far the moment you walked into that office and decided my life was yours to spend. He stood there, crying, waiting for me to fix it, waiting for me to say, it's okay. We'll figure it out. That was the script. That was the role I had played for 33 years. The fixer, the safety net. I dropped the script. Goodbye. Logan, I said. I turned around and walked out the doors. The air outside was cold and crisp. It filled my lungs. It tasted like winter, but it also tasted like oxygen. I walked to my car, my sensible, paid-off sedan. I got in. I threw the binder on the passenger seat. I started the engine. My phone buzzed. It was probably my mother. It was probably Mike. It was probably a dozen people telling me I was selfish. I didn't check it. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. I didn't have a family anymore. The text was right about that. But as I merged onto the highway, watching the courthouse shrink in my rearview mirror, I realized something else. I had my credit. I had my name. And for the first time in my life, I had myself. I turned on the radio. I drove toward the horizon, and I didn't look back. Thank you for listening to this story. It was a journey of betrayal, boundaries, and the hard cost of truth. I would love to know, have you ever had to draw a line with family that cost you the relationship? Let me know in the comments below, and please tell me where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more realistic dramas about justice and survival. Share your thoughts in English in the comments. I read every single one. Stay safe and protect your peace.